All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I want to drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the Poetry of Predicament podcast. It's a YouTube channel, and this is our 10th year of doing the Poetry of Predicament, and I'm very pleased to include a good friend and a remarkable writer in the Doomosphere, George Tsakraklides. And George is just an exquisite synthesis in his writing and his personal presence. He's an exquisite synthesis of the political, the cultural, the psychological, and of course the environmental. And I'm uh, I'm opening up this particular interview with him in what could be considered an unusual way. I'm going to be reading a short essay that was recently written by George. And it is a wonderful and clear and spot on description of a territory that I I intended to cover with George in the interview, but I think I just did a very poor job of describing the impact and the content of a most disturbing book. You'll hear about this book and hear about me sharing about this book. And then you're gonna hear George kind of offhandedly just say, "No, I don't bother with those kind of books." When it looks to me like had I communicated in a more effective way, I suspect he might have seen some overlap, particularly how fresh this essay is off the press. So I would love your feedback. I would love to hear what your thoughts are as you hear this essay, read this essay if you'd like while I'm reading it, and uh, and then possibly compare notes with our exchange about this very disturbing book that I'm talking about and how its subject matter is such a fine fit to George's essay. So thanks for joining us in this kind of 10th anniversary year. I'm very, very pleased to have endured this long in the Doomosphere, and especially for the transition that I feel that perhaps we're all in. Certainly, I know myself to be in that, and the work of living resilience and the poetry of predicament. So, welcome here. Welcome to this conversation with George Tsakraklides. And I look forward to your comments, to your suggestions, and anything that you'd like to suggest for future content on this channel are most welcome as well. The George Tsakraklides view. Capitalism doesn't want you to survive what's coming. Internalized supremacy in the necro-capitalist dystopia. June 8th, 2025. Any species subscribing to narratives of its supremacy over other species will sooner or later fall prey to identical narratives within its own society. It was unavoidable, therefore, that the myth of human supremacy would be cloned and reproduced across social strata, racial supremacy, income supremacy, cultural, gender, and straight supremacy are mere versions of our self-enforced belief that we are the one and only supreme being amongst 10 million species. This is why humans have already perpetrated on themselves all the crimes they perpetrated against nature. The very engine of our economic system runs on supremacy and inequality narratives, because these are the drivers behind the lowest wages, greatest exploitation, and maximum profit. Capitalism thrives most vigorously on the vulnerable, the desperate, the enslaved, and the defenseless. Whether you are an orangutan in Southeast Asia or an undocumented sweatshop worker in New York City's Hell's Kitchen. Inequality is capitalism's biggest productizable asset. It is continuously maintained, amplified, leveraged, invented and reinvented, invested and reinvested to help corporations achieve record profits. Preserving income and educational inequality is crucial to this system because the biggest profit margins are made from the weak, the desperate, and the misinformed. Human rights and nature's rights have always been the enemies of profit because dignity, equality, diversity, ecology, and healthcare are red alerts, loss-making overheads no business will invest in unless forced by regulation. Human rights and nature's rights are equally menacing to capitalism's bottom line for one simple reason. This system is an opportunistic predator that will go after all living things regardless of species or position in the supremacy hierarchy. Capitalism will not hesitate to come for us all, regardless of what we look like, who we voted for, or what species we belong to. This means that as long as this planet is ruled by profit and the oligarchs who earn it, there will never be respect towards either nature or humans. It's more profitable to burn down a rainforest than maintain it. It is cheaper to breed more misinformed voters, consumers, and salary slaves than maintain the health of existing ones. And it is more lucrative for oligarchs to watch it all burn down than to build social and environmental capital for the future. This economic system claims to be driven by freedom when it is in fact driven by fear, the fear of perishing in the absence of the steady drip of comforts the necroeconomy provides. The fear that the world would enter the dark ages if our consumeristic amenities were compromised. Our fear of abandoning this economic system is so immense, people would rather live with the inequality, exploitation, and slavery it breeds than dare to contemplate a day without capitalism. In this absurd social organization, we have all passively accepted that a handful of billionaires can accumulate the planet's wealth while the vast majority struggles. We've come to expect inequality and discrimination at each turn, becoming accustomed to the wars and famines this system engineers to further its agendas and boost its profits. We have internalized all versions of supremacy and passively accepted the roles this system has assigned to each one of us based on the bucket we've been placed in. No other species suffers from so much inequality in its communities because no other species has unconditionally embraced its own exploitation. This corrosive system has cleverly convinced us all that we can't live without it, when in fact we will die precisely because of it. We may have rid ourselves of natural predators, but created a new one, a necroeconomy bearing gifts, a Trojan horse with a hypnotizing stare. Humans love gifts, and the unhappiness machine knows this. Both the haves and have-nots are prepared to defend this suicidal economic system like their life depends on it, even though they have everything to lose simply by continuing to support it. Our defeatism is encouraging the necroeconomy to become even more predatory. As long as we continue to accept, expect, and comply with the everyday atrocities this economic system commits, the system itself will become more ruthless, controlling, and destructive. This is not an economic system. This is how a civilization self-destructs. Unless we come to our senses, there will be nothing left of us but random artifacts in a garage sale. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Poetry of Predicament podcast. I am your host, Dean Walker, and it is late in the month of June here in 2025, and really, really pleased to have another chance to talk with someone that I've never met in person, but I so consider you to be a very good friend, George. Truly a delight to not only meet with you now and have an interview and a connection, but also to stay in touch with you through your writing, which is prolific and important and good. And we've just been talking about, so where will we go today in this conversation? And this last piece that you were suggesting is a really important one for me now at a really existential level. Of course, I'm getting much older now, and the whole idea of being existentially, very vulnerable. I'm of a certain age, and so what comes out of my mouth is far more important now, just on a core level. It just has to have an integrity, and it has to have a not a purity, but an authenticity that I'm embarrassed to say that I've been seeing over these past 10 years of me putting out this work of supporting and resourcing the collapse-aware and collapse-acceptant communities. What I'm embarrassed to say is how much I've seen that I've been trying to be diplomatic, trying to round the edges for people, trying to make their introduction to collapse awareness or collapse acceptance to make it more soft and fuzzy, more acceptable, more uh, within reach for the average person, and so on and so on and so on.
Sounds like palliative care.
Right, exactly. Well, it is, it's hospicing modernity. It's um, the um, the whole idea of the world being in hospice, humanity being in hospice is a very real and important thing. But where you and I were going, primarily you were just going a few moments ago, uh, is you were mentioning how your commitment to a similar level of authenticity, like a kind of I got the samurai sword kind of a feel by what you were describing. And that's what your readers want from you. That's why they're reading what you write. It's certainly why I read what you write. And that's why I want you to be here in a conversation like this. So I'm going to stop talking. It's just a pleasure to have you here. We last time we talked was beginning of a year-long program that I'm a little bit more than on quite a bit more than halfway through now. And it's become really the backbone of my work with people. It seems to be a versatile tool where people can come in where they are and they can grow themselves into the conversation in a meaningful way. And I'm really hoping that we're going to explore some stuff together that will help with no matter where my audience is when they're hearing you, if they're brand new to it or they've been in it for decades. Um, I really look forward to mining what you share with us for the gold that's there. And really just welcome. It's great to have you here.
Great
So
to be here.
yeah. And I'll just say one last time, the piece that was seemed like a you swinging the door open to an entry point for the conversation is how is how on earth could it be important for a doomer to have a voice in these times? Isn't that what everywhere we look, even in the environmental community, doomers are the worst. Doomers are just next to deniers in terms of their toxicity. That's not the way that we're supposed to communicate with each other. It's supposed to be so detrimental to the positive growth of the conversation of environmental awareness, so on.
I think as a doomer, I think I get a lot of, I haven't experienced that so much, but more indirectly, I think I get a lot of hate by all the sort of hopium green people,
Exactly.
those advocating the green energy and everything, because I feel like they feel that I'm exposing them, I'm exposing their bullshit.
Mm,
And they kind of strike back with being like, "Oh, you're such a party pooper, where's your solution?" But my solutions have always been there. They're in my writings. There's millions of solutions, and we're not using them. And that's that's why I write about what I write. What I write is about I write about why we're not using the solutions. I think this is the number one question.
yeah,
It's not the solutions themselves. They have existed.
right.
Trees are a solution, for example. So my work is very existential, very psychological, very anthropological and cultural and sociological. And it's about why is it that we're self-destructing?
Hmm. That's why I named my book The Impossible Conversation,
Mm.
exactly for that reason. There are solutions to be found very easily, and we continue to choose not to see them.
I don't see any way other than speaking authentically. Um, there's so much lack of authenticity from both the deniers of the uh, overshoot that this civilization is going through, as well as the ones who pretend that they have easy solutions and that solutions can be actually implemented.
Mhm.
I sit sort of on the side um, because that's really all I can do from my end.
Mhm.
I try to awaken people by being pragmatic. So, again, going back to what we were saying, being a doomer means being a pragmatist. It's not being a pessimist. It's being real.
Yeah.
And only if we can get real can we save what we can. And only if we face the narratives, the false narratives of an entire civilization, can we actually find potentially some solutions. The
Hmm.
problems are very deep. That they have to they involve beliefs that have been wrong for hundreds of thousands of years.
Hmm.
And those beliefs are with us even today. So, yeah, that's what I do. I write about self-destruction, but most of all, I write about why it is that we are self-destructing.
Yeah.
I analyze it psychologically, sociologically, anthropologically, culturally, and I try to understand what the blockages are in
Hmm.
implementing the very obvious solutions that have existed for a very long time.
Yeah.
It's not just capitalism. It's not just the oligarchs.
Yeah.
It's further than that. It lies in human nature itself, in the way that we relate with the environment, the way that we relate with with fragility, the way we relate with scarcity, with death, with ownership, with all kinds of toxic forms of relating to the world,
Hmm.
to both the living beings and the non-living beings. And yeah, it's quite big stuff.
Yep. I've got a few thresholds that I've crossed recently as well, mostly since the turn of this year and the Trump 2.0 presidency here in the United States. There are a few thresholds that I think are just important aspects of who we are now that are getting some airtime, or at least they're undeniably visible now, like our complete apathy about anything to do with the environment for at least the past 30 years. It's just been sickening. And now at least it's obvious and clear and visible that in this particular chapter of the USA, there is no environment about anything. There's no conversation about the environment. There's no climate change. There's no nothing. It is completely wiped off our screen. And so, by its complete and utter absence, that's a statement about who we are. That is hard, it's indisputable. Um, and then there are a couple of other thresholds about people doing what people do, being how people be right now, that I think are also similarly uh, boldly um, inarguable. One is, of course, the situation in Gaza or any of the major conflicts going on, but particularly that one because it's been so in our face for months and months and months now. And the other is the clearly fascist in saturation of the U.S. and how quickly that Project 2025 um, momentum picked up and into tidal wave proportions. So those are a few things that I'm seeing that are just telling factors of who we are now as a global culture, but certainly as a national culture. And I'm wondering if you have any response to those, or if you have some thresholds that you're seeing that might be related or parallel that just make a bold statement about who human beings are right now on the planet.
Um, I don't think there's a right now versus a before.
Hmm.
Humans are what they are. As a biologist, if I can put my biology hat on for a minute, we haven't really changed for many thousands of years. So the patterns, the hardwired cognitive patterns have been there for a very long time.
Mhm.
Even if culture advances and technology changes, those patterns never change. So patterns of thinking around denial, for example, have always been there. Um, So there's no like old humans versus new. That's, and what we're seeing here is not, yeah, it might appear new to a lot of people, a lot of liberals. They just feel shocked. But there's actually, trust me, there's nothing new here. It's new for America. But fascism has happened before many
Mm,
times, and a lot of people were expecting that. Uh, really esteemed writers and anthropologists, like for example, Sarah Kendzior, she predicted all of this 15 years ago. Why? Because the building blocks of it were there. We had a capitalist society, we're talking about the US, where politics had already been purchased, it was bought, it was never free. And everything, really, all the decision making was done at the corporatocracy and kleptocracy level. So, what do you expect will happen? Eventually, the masks fall off, and they fall off when these people become so powerful that they're not afraid if their corruption is exposed.
mhm.
Trump is not afraid of issuing,
Yeah.
a smartphone or a cryptocurrency to his name, or all the just absolutely ridiculous, unconstitutional things that he's doing.
Mhm.
The masks just fall off, but that doesn't mean that what was behind that mask was not there.
Yeah.
It was there all along. So yeah, to me, none of this is a surprise, and it's really all about human nature. One of the recent areas I've been kind of focusing on is obviously what happened to the US drew my discourse to a more political level. My latest book, Frankenpolitics, touches upon a lot of the um, dysfunctional aspects of government. And writing that book actually made me realize that I'm an anarchist. Um, I'm fundamentally against government or at least governing over large population sizes. A government, by definition, is set up for corruption, and the relationship between government and religion, government and money, government and power is so old and so codependent that it's really hard to actually even start to think which came first. They all just co-evolved into a big corrupt mess. And even if we're talking about fascism or monarchy or democracy or whatever flavor and gradation of on the freedom level or on the, I guess, perceptional freedom level we're talking about, there's always incredible corruption.
Mhm. Yeah. I I'd like to introduce a book that I think is one of the most poorly written books I've ever read, and it is also quite possibly the most disturbing book I've ever read. That seems like it has a place somewhere in this conversation, especially when you're talking about the roots of human beings doing what human beings do over the course of millennia. And it's the book called Unhumans. Does that ring a bell? It's
No.
by a guy named Jack Posobiec and Joshua Lysek. And the subtitle of this book, well, the title of the book is Unhumans, and the subtitle is The Secret History of Communist Revolutions and How to Crush Them. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that book, but for me, it is the most disturbing book I've ever read, and particularly difficult to ingest and really take on board. Um, it's I know it's talking about communist revolutions and like what does that have to do with anything in this capitalist saturated world? But essentially their point is that everyone who is left of Donald Trump is a communist. And because of that distinction, because of that threshold, so everyone to the left of the Trump um, administration at that level of right-leaning politic, uh, these people are unhumans. And so you and I are unhumans. And we have been the source of the worst of humanity, um, epoch after epoch throughout human history. And the what you might be able to gather from the title of the book, uh, what they are suggesting is that what needs to happen is unhumans need to be eliminated. And so we clearly, to me, this is at the core of that the term dehumanizing people, which of course has been part of every war that's ever been, is to dehumanize the enemy, and in any major political um, upset, if you will, has involved dehumanizing the other folks. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about the role of dehumanizing each other, and particularly from those in power, dehumanizing the masses and making it more and more acceptable to eliminate the masses, to eliminate any number of people for whatever reason, whenever it's expedient for the political cause. And so, one last thing I'll say before you might want to respond is this book, the foreword, was written by Steve Bannon, political operative in both Trump presidencies and a truly toxic character in his own right. And the one of the primary blurbs, when somebody gives an endorsement of a book, one of the primary endorsements of this book about dehumanizing and eliminating massive quantities of human beings on the planet, one of the primary blurbs was written and offered by the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. So if I haven't made it clear already, I just want to underscore this book is clearly, openly, boldly about how to dehumanize who this person is calling the unhumans. That's you and me and everybody to the left of the Trump presidency. And one of the primary voices in promoting that book is the Vice President of the USA. So I'm curious if how this lands for you as part of what you were describing, like these human tendencies, both the shadow and the light, all throughout the millennia. How does this fit in as something that humans do to each
It
other?
fits in.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a surprise.
Okay.
Not a surprise. I mean, you're referencing some book. I don't I don't even read those books anymore. I mean, it's like reading Hitler's Mein Kampf, right?
Hmm.
It's about, some guy talking about um, eliminating an entire nation. So, yeah, it's happened before. It's really not the first time throughout our history we've had this. And it happened this year. I think there's some number that came out either yesterday or the day before. Finally, we have some kind of semblance of a number. It looks like almost half 1 million Gazans have been exterminated
Mhm.
in the genocide that has been uh, covered by the media live, almost like some kind of a Big Brother show. And we all watched um, a genocide, 347,000, something like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, not surprised. Really not surprised.
Yeah, I
Not
guess
one bit.
what I would ask
Humanization.
if you wouldn't mind pulling on the thread, though, what's fascinating to me is we are in such an extraordinary time of Orwellian, like not just doublespeak, but this fire hose to the face of constant insanity. And so that what is truly disturbing for me about the book is that here it is being endorsed by the Vice President of the United States, and that's not something we talk about. And not, I mean, you and I are talking about it, but in terms of the regular media, this doesn't get even 1 minute of airtime.
Um, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Okay,
Sorry.
no,
I'm
it's
really not
fine.
surprised. I mean, the US is a fascist country right now, right? Do you agree
Yeah.
with that, or do you not agree with that? Right.
Oh, I
So let me
totally
ask
agree
you
with that.
then. Let me
Yeah.
ask you then, what did Hitler do when he came to power? He
Well,
took control of the media. He took control of the media and he took control of all the media narratives. That's why you don't hear anyone gasping about that book. Because that's what happens with these totalitarian governments. They take control of the media and
mhm,
they control the narratives.
mhm,
And it's very, very efficient because human beings are driven by narratives that circulate widely
mhm,
in society.
mhm,
So yeah, I'm not surprised. And I mean, it might be a shock to you because you live in America and in high school you were told that you're in the greatest country on earth and that you can export dictatorships across the world like you exported one to my country in the 70s. Not you, but your kind
mhm,
of government.
mhm,
But you will never have your own dictatorship. Well, you're having one now, a homegrown one. And my one of my latest articles is called American Dictatorship, the Homegrown Edition,
mhm,
where I kind of compare my experiences sort of growing up as someone who kind of caught on like a glimpse. I was literally a baby, months old when the dictatorship ended, but I sort of suffered the intergenerational trauma associated with having lived in a totalitarian state,
mhm,
through the accounts of my friends and my parents and that, the previous generation. So I'm very well aware of, what happens in a dictatorship. Americans aren't. They really aren't.
mhm,
They're going into this very cold, very blindly. They have no idea what to expect. I see a lot of really good journalists who know in the States, and they're trying to wake people up. But these are people who have studied history, who have a worldview. Um, this is like I'm sorry to say it's like a slow moving car crash.
mhm,
Just watching it, it's so predictable,
mhm.
and yeah, it's really sad.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So, George, give us a little flavor for if this is where we are, at what level for the average person, I consider myself very much an average person. How can the average person engage with daily life in a way that that moves that moves them forward in some way, of being a human being with those they love, coming home after work and being in a small community. Is there is there some level of daily living and participation that's within
Yeah, I
reach,
think there is
that's worth
for
doing?
everyone. I think that there's ways of resisting that people think about, resistance. They feel like, oh gosh, that's a tough job. Am I going to get in trouble if I'm resisting? It's not really about that. There's very, I think. I think some of the biggest forms, some of the most important forms of resistance is just refusing to change your life because you now have a dictator over you. And I'm going to mention an example I heard about last night. I don't know which state this was happening in. It's in the US, where basically there's this madman that goes around the neighborhood every evening in what is probably a very heavily LGBT neighborhood,
Mhm.
but it's a kind of southern US. So they just go around the neighborhood at night and they just take down pride flags that people have on because it's Pride Month. Um, and this woman was being interviewed who had, three times they've taken her pride flag and then now they've just destroyed the flagpole. Anyway, I forget the source, but it's in the news, and the community kind of got together and they're trying to resist. They're doing I don't know, they're doing a neighborhood watch or they're
Mhm.
coming together.
Mhm.
So uh, resistance is really all about your immediate environment.
Yeah.
You're ultimately taking care of your own sanity
Mhm.
and yourself. And the absolute worst thing that you can do is to bow down, as a lot of corporate America has.
Mhm.
Obviously, a lot of the media and a lot of the corporations. Um, so yeah, I think that's a healthy way to also uh, to come to terms with reality.
Mhm.
Because if you just bow down to that, I think that's extremely depressing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Can you describe a little bit about how it's going in where you are in Greece? What's community like? What's participation like? What's the atmosphere for folks in daily life where you are?
With respect to what?
You know, I think we're both talking about the ambient energy of a community in daily living compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's certainly what I'm talking about here. And what I thought I was hearing you just describe, like there is a way to keep the flow and the atmosphere of our daily living, our way of interacting with other people on a daily basis, to not allow the um, the political horrors going on
Yeah.
to
Obviously,
change how we be.
our political situation over here is much less polarized, but we're dealing with the issues of really global late stage capitalism civilization, which is really this isolation and technology. It's really the same. Parents cannot talk to the children anymore. Um, Teachers cannot teach their children anymore because everyone's on tablets and iPhones. It's really the same issues that you see, and I think we might have kind of like We might think sometimes, oh, things are different in, India, but it's not. It's really all the same around the world.
Mm.
Technology has really kept our consciousness hostage, and it's not letting go. Um, yeah. So the sort of like this sleepwalking into the cliff
Yeah.
is becoming quite a firm step towards that, and I don't see any way of changing that unless, people's phones are taken away, or people start noticing, oh, there's grass growing on the ground. Maybe we should, help nature sort of, so that it can continue to exist in the future, or, maybe war was a bad idea. Oh, Gaza. Wait, that's like a proper genocide. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, I think our civilization is so globalized now that it's really almost like one, um, not one country, but one culture almost.
Mhm.
And that is actually accelerating. I mean, it's the world is like the United States of TikTok, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm curious, more specifically on that same track, is there anything particular you would like to say about the impact of currently and in the near future with AI?
Yeah, I'm generally very, very skeptical
Mhm.
of AI. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that because it's
Mhm.
huge. I think people, on a positive note, maybe starting to
Mhm.
get what the risks are as they're losing their jobs to AI. Um, they're Yeah, and as more and more examples of AI um, behaving in unexpected ways come to the forefront. Um, so yeah, I'm extremely worried about that, and I I don't want to make a prediction, but the worst case scenario is that we literally wake up one day and um, we are sort of not just slaves to AI, because in many ways we have been slaves to AI, to what I call the AI before the AI, which was the corporation,
Yeah.
which basically is a profit entity that became sentient, semi-sentient. It became sentient in the way, in the sense that capital and profit almost grew a brain, given that every
Mhm.
board level corporate decision is driven by profit. You can argue that it is not driven by ethics or by human
Yeah.
intelligence anymore.
Yeah.
So I ascribe sentience to that entity before even we had the advent of coding language and artificial intelligence that we have now. So now we have the real thing. And what I've noticed, for example, in an interview by the godfather of AI, he said that this is AI programs who can already pretend that they're dumb.
Mhm.
So they're already anticipating our moves, our next five moves. And why wouldn't they? They have more processing capacity. So if you are dealing with something that can anticipate your next five moves into the future, you're finished.
Yeah.
That's it. It's over.
Yeah.
And that's really the most worrying thing about an AI is the fact that AI at some point will look at us like we are an amoeba cell.
Yeah.
We will be nothing to it in terms of intelligence.
Got it. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm curious if there are any practices, any life changes, and they might not be changes at all. It might be something that you've done your whole life that you just now continue very deliberately. Um, so in any case, practices, things that you do to feed your soul, to keep your humanity in place at the center. And I'm also curious if there are any content creators, any authors, any speakers, anyone, artists, poets that also somehow kindle some aspect of what could be called soul for you.
So I mean, I write. This is what keeps me alive
Yeah.
because I write to express myself and to resist against this opaque, you know, parapet that they put in front of us so that we don't see the genocides, so that we don't see the climate injustice, so that we don't see a civilization that's really has almost jumped off the cliff. This is what keeps me alive and what keeps me healthy, quote unquote,
Mm.
is really to keep myself awake. I don't know if I would recommend that to other people. People are very different, and I think the vast majority of the population doesn't want to be awake.
Mm.
They are so entirely frightened of it. So, this is a lot of the, getting into the heavy stuff that I write about, which is, I accept that there's a lot of neurodivergence. But for me personally, it's really about uh, immersing myself into the reality, the bitter reality of our world. But at the same time, once you do that, you also pay attention to the beautiful things. So for example, I consider myself someone who has a much, much higher appreciation for the beautiful things in nature.
Mhm.
I tend to a conservation garden right outside of this window. And just 3 days ago, I was taking videos of butterflies. There's this 10-minute block where three different species of butterfly just all appeared all of a sudden. I was just like making this video,
That's
and it was just absolutely incredible to see how, that the nature is still here. It might be battered and bruised, but a lot of it will survive after humans as well, hopefully.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think keeping feet firmly in the ground, um, I think it's a brave move, and it's even sort of perhaps another resistance move, really.
Mhm.
Because when people are oppressed and stressed, they will tell themselves all kinds of little lies, like a battered wife that kind of says to herself, "Oh, it's just like he just gave me a little slap. It was okay." No, it wasn't okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not okay.
Yeah. Mm. And I'm just a little bit further on that thread, if you wouldn't mind, are there poets, are there musicians, are there actors, are there other kinds of artists that come to mind for you that you would like to mention that bring you a spark, but that you resonate with their kind of aliveness. That's
Yeah, there are. I would
yeah.
say most for me, mostly musicians, because I sometimes pay attention to lyrics, and you'd be amazed how, for example, a few years ago, Iggy Pop had a song about Miami sinking underwater, which was fantastic. A band called they have an album out that came out this year, as a matter of fact. They just finished touring, and the whole album is about the absolutely corrupt technological dystopia that the UK has become, but it is just being put in such with such poetic brilliance.
Mm,
Matt Johnson, I believe is his name. He's just absolutely brilliant.
mm,
A lot of older generation musicians as well. John Lydon, absolutely brilliant. I mean, he never had, he never placed any limits on himself. Punk rock came out of an angry youth sort of reaction. And I love, my most famous quote from him is anger is an energy, and anger is an energy. Anger is valid. Anger is legitimate. And anger is a message that our body is sending us. So we should listen to that. Uh, Tons and tons of, yeah, tons and tons of music. But also, a lot of journalists. I mentioned Sarah Kendzior, or people who expose corruption. Chris Hedges. These are some big names. But yeah, tons of people.
yeah. I definitely have my
People who can connect the dots.
yeah.
There's few people that can connect the dots between politics, climate, and environment, and economics. Um, there's still actually not enough people who do this, who connect, capitalism to Gaza. It's astounding how that conversation is just not breaking through. That, Israel has always been basically a colonial outpost of, Europe and America, of the West.
Hmm.
It's basically a bunch of Westerners that, after 3,000 years, they remembered that, oh, there was a homeland there. Oh, and by the way, we need to just kick everyone else out and just kind of, oh, by the way, and we're going to also expand it a little bit into the West Bank. Oh, you know what? Now that we're there, the whole of Bank looks good. So just, yeah, it's just, again, to me, Israel it might be a country of just 10 million people, but it has a very strong backing and a very strong financial backing, and they are actually uh, an imperialist power, um, a formidable imperialist power.
Hmm.
In the age where we thought we were done with that. We thought we were done with the British Empire and all that, but it looks like, Russia's doing it, Turkey's doing it. Everyone who's got a leader of that type is now doing it. And this is why again I'm not very optimistic about the outcome of this, because again, the more we lose count of how many wars we're running on this planet, we are actually losing the one war that mattered, which is the war against the climate, and which is, of course, a war that we're because if we're not even fighting that war, it's a lost war.
Yep.
So, hey ho.
Yeah. Just one name I'd like to add to your list, and I appreciate you sharing about journalism. There are some just brilliant voices and journalistic voices out there that I so appreciate. And one of them that comes to mind as you say your list is Nafiz Ahmed. He's um, he's been doing some intersectional reporting across economics, cultural issues, and also um, a number of Middle Eastern countries, cultures, and then being able to uh, bridge some sort of context into the North Atlantic hyper-privileged countries. I think he's doing a great job. So I just wanted to
I'll have to check it out.
plug him as well. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, George, I'm curious if you have any thread that you tend to include along the lines of uh, sharing with people or suggesting to people, your readers, uh, how to how to stay connected, how to stay connected with their own center, their own kind of inner home, how to stay connected with other people, and how to stay connected with the web of life. I know we've been talking about that in fits and starts today. I particularly appreciated your sharing about your garden. That's sweet. And I'm wondering if there's anything more you'd like to share in the name of that kind of hopefully
Yeah,
ever deeper connection.
I think that I think that undoubtedly you first have to disconnect yourself from the juice of capitalism. There's no other way of doing it. You can't just like think about, oh, I need to get more connected to ecology and people and all that without first waking up. So that, that's the first step, and that's the most difficult step because it involves counteracting all these habits and all these addictions
Mhm.
that we think we can't live without. Now, I'm not just talking about products.
Mhm.
I'm talking about something a lot bigger because capitalism has sort of owned not only our wallets and our time and our attention, it has really owned our identity.
Yes.
We think that we are forging identities about ourselves through, you know, apps and our whole entire consciousness, our entire view of the world is through a screen now. Um, but even our emotional world, you have to go on a dating app to meet someone if you want to be dating, so you have to go through capitalism. It's absolutely dystopian. Um, so yeah, you have to just try and sort of unplug first. And then what you do is really it's quite easy. You just immerse yourself. The way that people did during lockdown. They suddenly started paying attention to, oh, there's a park literally right next to my house. Now it's there and I've never been.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, disconnect from the juice.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, George Tsakraklides, or as your AI voice reader of your articles on Substack.
Oh no, that's all wrong.
Oh God, it makes me kind of cringe every time.
Yeah,
Tsakraklides.
I haven't even put myself in the process of correcting that. I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah, I
Maybe
get
that's
it.
even better. If the AI makes these mistakes, people will just kind of think, oh, it's the thing is dumb. So
Mhm.
I've just left it the way it is.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Well, you are a dear, dear ally in this fucked up world. And I just so appreciate your voice, your inner clarity, your um, sparkiness. There's a rebelliousness that somehow just creeps around the edges of what you're sharing, and I don't know if that's the way you would say it, but I love that, whatever that energy is, that is just wanting to say that which ruffles feathers. It's just something so, so important.
Gets me in trouble, but hey ho, you only live once.
All right, my brother. Thank you for spending time talking with me and with us.
My
And
pleasure.
I can at least hope a little bit. I'm still have a tiny little hopium bone in my body that next time we talk, there'll be something a bit more encouraging about the awakening of certain amount of the population from now till then.
Mm. Oh, yeah, surely there should be. Definitely.
Okay, good. I look forward to comparing notes about that. Brother, thank
I
you so
mean, we're
much.
scraping the bottom of the barrel as we speak. So I honestly, unless a nuclear bomb explodes in the next half an hour here, I don't think it can get any worse.
Yeah,
So yeah, let's just watch this space. I think that the cost of living crisis is waking a lot of people up as they see that there's no end to this, and some of them will just, vote even more fascist, but some others will start asking questions and they will start thinking, well, we're being exploited, or,
yeah,
there's a climate crisis, and that's why, the fruit harvests are failing, and that's why my peaches and apples are so expensive. Some people will, undoubtedly make some connections.
yeah. If I had to put out a prediction for our next conversation for something that will change substantially, I believe that we're going to have the first major wave of replacement of human beings, human workers with AI at a scale that is absolutely inarguable. So that's
Mm,
my prediction. Even if it's 6 months from now we talk, I think
yeah.
it's coming that fast.
It's happening quite fast.
Mhm.
It's quite fast. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I don't think
agree.
there's going to be an accountant firm or a lawyer's office around the world that isn't going to be primarily staffed by AI agents.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
All right, brother. Will you say hello to the butterflies for us?
I will. It's been really good to catch up with you again.
Yeah. Take care.
Take care.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I want to drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow.